5 years ago, if you would ask me on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of happiness, I would just sway off that question from you because I didn't want to talk about it at all. Happiness is something I didn't want to talk about because I have so many problems that I was thinking of. And till this day, I still do have a lot of problems. You'd be surprised of the types of problems I now have compared to before. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I would honestly say my happiness was right between 2 to 4 out of 10. But it's probably around 2012 to about 2016. And those were stretches wherein if you ask me happiness, I wouldn't want to talk about it. Maybe a 4 or a 5 out of 10 at best, but I did not value what happiness meant. And for me, happiness back then was all about things and accolades and stuff that I was getting, recognition and stuff, which now it doesn't really matter to me anymore. There are no things that matter to me. Today, I'm happy to tell you, I'm right there between an 8 and a 9. I'd be lying to you if I said a 10 out of 10 because there are a lot of days wherein I wake up or before I go to sleep that I would feel unhappy. It's a feeling that I have that I would be a 7 or probably a 6, but it does not take long. And yes, I'd say to you right away that money helps in terms of happiness. Money helps a lot in terms of happiness. I'm not gonna lie, money is a source of happiness, but it's not everything. And it's actually a very small piece of it. Most of it comes from learning over the years of my own happiness, what my definition is of happiness, and what things are really important to me. And when I say things, these are not, tangible things that I have. It's not a phone, it's not a car, it's not a house. It's not even like, a leisure trip or something like that. I've cultivated that with a lot of techniques. And with this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you some techniques that I have that I've learned through the years of what happiness is. That's why the title of this episode is Happiness is Learned. It's not a state of feeling. It's not a state of being that we all have. Maybe happiness is not something that we inherit or even choose. Some people say, oh no, it's not a feeling that I choose. It just happens to me. No, it's a highly personal skill that can be learned. Trust me, it's something that you can learn. When you're feeling unhappy, you can learn how to be happy. How? Watch it till the end of this episode, or if you're listening to the podcast, listen till the end of the podcast. And pretty sure that feeling that you have of like a 4 or a 3, let's raise it up like 1 or 2 and maybe 3, after a week or so. If you start working on this, it's like fitness and nutrition. When you start working out for the first time and you look at yourself in the mirror and you see nothing, you don't see anything. Like start working out in your chest, you do those, and then you do bicep curls. You look at your chest, try to see if it's big, and you try to check out your arms. If you have guns already after a day of working out, there's none. You don't see it. Maybe after 30 days there is, but it's not so significant. I don't believe in those 30-day transformation things. There's improvement in those 30 days, but it's not a transformation. Maybe in a 6 months period of time, and that's not even healthy, to say the least. What I'm trying to say here is that, it takes time, and it's not going to be overnight. Like after you watch or listen to this episode, you're not going to see the changes right away, but I'm pretty sure it's going to change. Happiness is a evolving thing. And I think like all the great questions that we have, when you're a little kid, you go to your parents, your mom, your dad, and you probably ask the question, what happens when we die? As kids, we ask those questions because the first time you see, a relative die, what happens? You ask that question, like, what happens when we die? Is there Santa Claus? You see God? Or, if you're in a different religion, do you see Allah perhaps? Or, if you're practicing Buddhism, should I be happy if I see them after that? I mean, who should I marry? Should I take this job or what? All those things. Those kinds of things, there are no direct answers to it. There's different answers to that. There's no right, there's no wrong answers. There's just answers. There's no concrete answer like, is the sky blue? Yes. It's not like that. No answer applies to everyone. And this thing that I'm telling you now might not apply to you. And it's okay. And these kinds of questions ultimately do have answers, but they have very personal answers. So the answer that works for me is going to be perhaps nonsense to you. And you might say in the comment section, like, who the F do you think you are trying to talk to me about happiness? You don't know shit about happiness. You're not in my position. And I'm glad I'm not in your position because no one wants to be in anybody's anybody's shoes. You don't want to be anyone else but yourself because you don't know the problems that someone else has. Whatever happens means to me, it could mean something different to you. And I think it's very important to explore what these definitions are when it comes to happiness. Or what's the Tagalog for happiness? Maligaya. For some people I know, it's what we call a flow state. Some psychologists call it what we call a flow type of state. You know, it's a wave. Like you're happy and then you crash, you're happy, you're not. It's a flow state. For some people, it's satisfaction. For some people, it's a feeling of being content. But for how long? When you buy a new thing, how long does that contentment last? Like when you buy a new car, how long are you content with, that new sedan that you bought, and next thing you're trying to look for a high-end car. My definition of that keeps evolving, and the answer I would given you a year ago or probably 5 years ago would be different from what it is now. Today, I believe really that happiness is what we call a default state. Happiness is there when you remove the sense of something that is missing in your life. I'll repeat that again for you. Happiness is there when you remove something or the sense of something that's missing in your life. When you're missing something or you don't have something, you're not happy, right? Because you don't have it. But once you have it, you're happy, right? But for how long? That's a core definition of happiness from what I've studied, is that if you're thinking about something and you don't have it, you're going to be unhappy. So let me explain. We're highly judgmental people. We're survivors. Like COVID right now is becoming a non-entity in terms of, subject, because as humans have evolved and we've accepted it, and to the point that became from a pandemic to a now endemic, and probably in the future just a common flu. It's very, very possible. We constantly walk around thinking like, I need this, or I want this, or I need that. And we're trapped in a web of what we call desires. Desire is something that makes us unhappy. The more we desire things, the more unhappy we become. It's just the nature of it. So happiness is the state of when nothing is missing. You are happy when nothing is missing. When you don't miss anything, you're happy. When you don't miss a person, you are happy. Because when you miss a person, then you become unhappy. It's common thoughts, but come to think of it, it's not so common when we think about, that type of thing. When nothing is missing, your mind shuts down and it stops running into the past or maybe to the future without regretting something or to plan something to do. In that absence for a moment, you have what we call internal silence. And what that means is that when you have internal silence, then you are content. And then when you are content, then you become happy. Feel free to disagree with me in the comment section. If you think this is something you don't believe in, if you think it's full of crap, then let me know. I'm good with that. Again, it's very different for everyone. I'm not saying this is for everyone, but happiness is supposed to be our default state. You're not born miserable. When you're born as a baby, you don't have worries. And then now you're given a toy, and then when someone takes away that toy, you start crying and start wishing that you have that toy. Your default state will always be happiness. People believe that happiness is just, thinking positive or think positive thoughts or positive actions. The thing here is that the more I started reading, the more I learned. And the more I've learned, the more I've experienced, because I have to try it myself and experience things because I need to verify it. Whatever I'm reading, I need to experience it because I need to verify if this is correct. And these are the things that I read from different books, from different people that inspire me, that I believe in. Even positive thoughts essentially hold weight in a negative thought. It's what we call like a contrast of something negative. There's this book called the Tao Te Ching, Taoteaching, Taoteaching. And it says that more articulate than I should. It's about duality and polarity. Dual and things that are polar opposites, like plus and minus. If I say that I am happy, it means that I was sad at some point. Here comes the flow. I'm happy now, and it came from something from what we call a feeling of sadness, because it's a flow. If I say that she's attractive, it means that someone is not attractive. It makes sense. When you see someone that's beautiful, as a guy, or as a woman, you see someone who's good looking as a guy, you see also someone that's not, which is the polarity of it, which is the opposite. When you see something beautiful, it's normal that you see something that's not, and vice versa, which is why a lot of greatness in life comes out of suffering. That's why when you fail, when you suffer, a lot of greatness comes into it. You've seen all the success stories of people, and they share the stories of their pitfalls or their downfalls, their failures. And failure is in conjunction with suffering. So it's a duality. That's what I meant by duality. When you failed, you feel like you're negative, and it's part of the flow state. You have to have negative thoughts before you can start aspiring to have positive thoughts. To me, happiness is not about positive thoughts and thinking positive thoughts alone and not thinking about negative thoughts. No, I thought about that before and I was completely wrong. Here's why. It's not about negative thoughts. It's about the absence of desire. If I don't desire to have a new phone, I will be happy. But the thing is, if you don't have money to buy a new phone, then you're gonna be miserable. And when you're miserable, you are unhappy. Especially the absence of desire for external things. Everything around us is external. Those are external things because it's tangible. You can touch it. Everything inside us, that's internal because it's in our hearts, it's in our minds. And the fewer desires that you can have, the more you can accept the current state of what things are right now. Is there a war going on right now? Is there a virus that's out there right now? A global pandemic that's happening right now? Yes, there is. And should I be worried about it? To some degree, yes, because that's what we are as human beings. But the more I can accept the current state of things that's really happening right now, the less my mind is moving. When you're having a lot of thoughts running into your head, you know the book Stillness is the Key, right? The more thoughts that you have in your head running, the more things that you think of that has not happened yet. Our mind really exists in motion towards either the future, which is not happening yet, or the past, wherein you will have regrets of things that you could have done before, which you're not doing now. The thing is, all you need to do is just focus on now. People are generally happy, focus more on what's happening right now. If you have bills to pay at the end of the month and you don't know how to do it, you focus on now instead of focusing on it as early as now. You're doing things right now for the future and not for the past. You can't change the past. The more present I become, the happier and more content I will be. It's just normal. And if I latch on to a feeling, if I say, oh, I'm happy now, and oh, I want to stay happy, you can't. Then I'm going to drop out of that feeling of happiness. So you go from that wave of high feeling of happiness back to like sadness, which is the opposite. Now, suddenly your mind is now going to be moving. It's trying to latch onto something which is called happiness. It's trying to create a permanent situation out of a temporary situation. Does that make sense? If I'm making sense, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Happiness to me is mainly not suffering. When you're not suffering, you're happy. But when you are suffering, your mind's suffering, your body's suffering, and not desiring, not thinking too much about the future or the past. And when you're really embracing the present moment and the reality of what it is and the way that it is. If ever you want to have peace in your life, you have to move beyond what we call good and evil. You know that voice in your head when you're trying to do something and there's someone in your left ear say, do it because it's the right thing to do, and the other one says, do it still, even if it's not good. We have voices in our head. Even when someone is not looking at us, you'll have voices in your head that tells you if you should do it or not. Nature has no concept of what happiness is or unhappiness is. Like nature has what we call mathematical laws and a chain of cause and effect from what we call from the Big Bang Theory. Like a tree doesn't have emotions. When it grows, it just grows by itself. It doesn't have feelings, but it is alive. Same with probably an ant. You know, an ant doesn't have feelings. Maybe a dog does have feelings. And that's why humans have evolved so much, because we're the only existing being from the dinosaur age. We've survived because we have these feelings that we have to judge what are right and what are wrong, what could be left behind perfectly exactly the way it is. And sometimes we become unhappy and things are perfect or imperfect because of what we desire. The world reflects your feelings back, and this is what I mean when I say happiness is a choice. I always say this in my post that happiness will always be a choice. If you believe there's a choice, then you can start working on it. There are no external forces affecting our emotions. It's just as much as it may feel that way. When I talk about my bottled water and I forget it or I lose it, I'll probably become unhappy. There's a solution for it. I'll just buy another one. But there are things that, you lose. You never lose them because you never had them. Like a relationship. You yourself, you are whole already as a person. You don't need someone to complete you to be happy. That's why I find it so funny whenever it says, like, you complete me. No one is supposed to complete you as a person. That's one of the biggest, Valentine's BS I've ever heard of complete me as a person, because you yourself should be whole as a person. And if you're not whole, no one or nothing will complete you. When you wear nicer things, when you wear nicer shoes, when you drive fancier cars, it's not going to make you complete. You alone are going to make yourself complete. And that's the whole point of this. And no thing or no person is going to bring you happiness, because happiness is our default state. One thing here is that our lives are like a blink of a firefly. In the whole existence of the world, with the Big Bang Theory, that's, the scientific explanation of how the world began, you are just barely here. Remember, when you die, you go back 6 feet under, you're gonna be, soil or something like that. You have to make the most of every minute. And when you learn, it doesn't mean you chase something stupid and desire something for the rest of your life. What it means is that every second that you're living right now is very precious. If you come to think of it, like for you, for example, you're what, 18, 19, 17 years old, and you think life is long for you because you're 17. But the thing is, life is really short most of the time, but it can be long at the same time. It depends on how you view it. And it's your responsibility to make sure that you're happy and you're interpreting everything in the best way possible. Because when you see things and you only see the negative that's going on in your life, guess what? You're going to be living a miserable life as we see it. A rational person will think that you can find peace when you cultivate indifference or being different to things outside of your control. This is one thing I realized. I have lowered my identity. I became from, a very known person in terms of being famous for something else besides what I know, which are just things, like shoes and whatever things that I have. I've lowered the chattering inside my head. Would they accept me? Do they like me? Asking questions that are not even significant to myself. I don't care about things that don't really matter now. And I don't get involved, especially in politics, because in politics, you never win. I have clients that are into politics, but I never discuss politics publicly. It's just the way it is. I don't hang around unhappy people. That's one of the main things that I don't do now. Like, if you say that the unhappy people that are around you are your family, you can choose to limit your time with those people who are unhappy, because you're gonna change other people, because change starts with you. And when they ask you, why are you so damn happy? Then you answer their question. Because if no one asks you why you're happy, then it's none of your business if people are unhappy. I really value my time in this world now as a 40-year-old compared to, 5 or 7 or 10 years ago. I read more about philosophy. I read more about stoicism. And I now appreciate meditation in conjunction to my happiness. I hang around now with lesser people, but people who are happy as a default state, because no one is really happy all the time. And the thing is, it works. So you can be very slow but steady and improve your happiness baseline in life, just like you can improve your fitness. When you're unfit, you're big, and you try to be fit, it's the same thing. When you're unhappy, you can work on being happy, similar to being fit instead of being obese, for example. So happiness will always be a choice. Happiness, love, and passion aren't things that you find in things. You don't find happiness in buying a Mercedes-Benz or in buying, an 8-bedroom mansion or buying high-end clothes for yourself. They're choices that you make. They are small choices that we make every single day. Now I really believe that happiness is a choice you make, and it's a skill that you develop. Happiness is a skill. It's not a feeling. It's a skill that you develop. Like when you feel unhappy, you know now that you recognize that you're unhappy, and you have this tool inside you that gets you out of that feeling and go back to the default state, which is being happy. Our mind is malleable, same as our body. To some point, our body can contort. Contortionists can bend their bodies in so many ways possible, right? But we spend so much time and effort trying to change the external world. Like we're trying to inflict change, we're trying to inflict change in the environment, on the ecosystem, in politics, in our office, in our relationships, and all that. All while trying to accept who we are as a person and the way that we're programmed in our youth, like in our school. So we accept the voice in our head as the source of all the truth that we have. But all of it is to make us what we call malleable. Malleable is when you hammer metal in front of fire, when you forge it and tries to bend, that's malleability. And every day is new. Memory and identity are burdens from the past, preventing us from living freely in the present. That's why you don't focus on the past, you don't look at the future. Your focus is always going to be in the present moment. Our happiness requires our presence. You have to be present all the time because we crave experiences that will make us be present in the present moment. But the cravings themselves take us apart or away from the present moment, and that's a problem. You want to eliminate vices that makes it easier to be present. There's a great definition that says enlightenment is the space between you and your thoughts. Enlightenment. It means enlightenment isn't something you achieve after 30 years sitting on a mountaintop or meditating every day for the rest of your life. It's something you can achieve moment to moment. You don't go jumping a huge step. It's moment by moment, and you can be enlightened to a certain person every single day. And that's why meditation really helps, because you can feel very happy at that single moment because your thoughts are focused on that certain moment only. You're not focusing about your work, your payables, and stuff like those. So I have a question for you. Now, what if in this life, this is the paradise already? And this is the paradise we were promised by whoever is out there, if whoever you believe is somewhere out there. And right now, we're just squandering it, like the opportunity to be in paradise. Right now, where you are right now, this world that you're living in, this is paradise. And you think that paradise is something you achieve, in the afterlife. But what if this is paradise for you and you're just wasting it because you're being unhappy? I don't know. To cap it off, happiness will always be your default state. And it's something that we always have to constantly learn. It's not something that you feel out of nothing. So it is something that we can learn every day. It's not something you can learn overnight, because happiness is a constant work in progress. After this video, for a bit, I might be pissed off about something and I don't know what it is. But the thing is, I don't worry about it anymore, because I know that with every problem that I have that causes unhappiness, there will always be a solution attached to it for me to become happy again. And happiness will always be my default state.